Good morning, students. Welcome to the online class. Today, social class. So, we have been discussing the wind, the pressure, air pressure, and the horizontal and the vertical movement of the air. This all. So, when we discuss these points, first of all, we have to understand the pressure belts on the earth. And the globe is divided into some pressure belts. And here, look in the diagram here. I draw a diagram. In this diagram, this is the globe shape, and the middle part, equator passes there, and the topic here, Tropic of Cancer, and this is Tropic of Capricorn. So from the equator to the Tropic of Cancer, and from the equator to the Tropic of Capricorn, these areas are generally called a tropical zone. What is it called? A tropical zone. On the base of the pressure, we can call it a equatorial low pressure belt. So this is equatorial low pressure belt. The areas above and below the equator, up to Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, this area is very hot. These areas are very hot. As these areas are very hot, here the pressure is always less. What is the pressure here? Very less. So these areas are equatorial low pressure belt. And above the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn below, we have the next hot region, but it is not very hot there. We can call it a warm region. Here it is warm, not hot. So these regions are called temperate zone. This is south temperate zone, that is the north temperate zone. This area is called north temperate zone. This is south temperate zone. On to the top, near the poles, we have the polar zone, north pole and south pole. See, equatorial low pressure belt. This is also called a tropical zone. Now the temperate zone. I said temperate zone is warm. But here, you see, compared to the tropical zone, equatorial low pressure belt, in that area here, temperature will be low and pressure will be very high. In the last class we discussed that from the equatorial region, from the equatorial low pressure belt, where it is very hot, so the air rises above. Air rises into the sky, and when the air moves away from the surface of the earth, its heat energy is lost. When the heat energy is lost, it becomes heavy because it becomes cool, and this cool air become heavy and falls down. Where does this air descend? This air descend in the tropical areas. Because the cool air reaches there, this area has a high pressure. The pressure is very high there. And from this region, the wind split into two parts. In the northern hemisphere near the Tropic of Cancer, in the southern hemisphere near the Tropic of Capricorn, the air split into two, and one part moves towards equator. From here, the air moves towards equator. And the other part moves towards subpolar low pressure belt. Because of the descent of the cool air here pressure is higher than this area. So this is called the subpolar low pressure belt, this area. Subpolar low pressure belt. So from here the wind moves towards to this area also. These subpolar low pressure belt are there here and there also. So from here the wind moves towards that side. From here the wind moves towards this side. At the same time, the wind moves from here to there also and from there to here also. Which wind is moving like that? The descending cool air split into two. One section go that side, other section go this side, like that. And what happened to the air that moves towards equatorial region? Already we studied. That air becomes hot again goes up, again come down, like that. And what happens to the air that moves towards the subpolar region? Here another thing, this region, polar high pressure belt, polar high pressure region, because the air is very cool there. The polar region is also called cold region. The air is very cold. So what will be the pressure condition there if it is very cold? Pressure will be very high, right? Pressure will be very high in the polar regions. So from polar regions, the air moves towards the subpolar low pressure belt. So air moves from polar region to subpolar low pressure belt, and the air moves from subtropical high pressure belt to polar low pressure belt. So both air meet here in the subpolar low pressure. Which airs meet? The air from the wind from the polar region and the wind from the subtropical region. Okay. So like that, we can say the air moves all around the earth. Isn't it? It is happening all around the earth, throughout the earth. That is why these winds are called planetary winds. What are these winds called? Planetary winds. Did you understand these pressure belts? Which are the pressure belts? Equatorial pressure belt, subtropical high pressure belt, equatorial low pressure belt, subtropical high pressure belt, polar low pressure belt, polar high pressure belt. So in one hemisphere these four belts are there. In one hemisphere these four are present. Which four are present? Equatorial low pressure belt, subtropical high pressure belt, polar low pressure belt, and polar high pressure belt. In northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere, in both area these pressure belts are there. And these areas are named, called by other names also. The polar regions are also called frigid zone. The polar regions are also called a frigid zone. And the equatorial regions are also called a torrid zone. Equatorial regions are called a torrid zone. And these two areas are called temperate zones. What are they called? Temperate zones. Like that, these are the pressure belts on the globe, and with the help of this we can understand the winds more. Now I said the air is moving throughout the earth, all around the earth. So these are called planetary winds. The word itself is planet. Planet means the earth is a planet. The wind that is taking place throughout the planet is called a planetary wind. There is a definition for that, we shall read that also. Okay, another concept of this wind. Actually, we studied the wind moves from, the air moves from dash to dash. Where to where? The air moves from high pressure areas to low pressure areas. Then we may have a doubt because the equatorial low pressure belt, here pressure is less, and here from here the wind should move straight, isn't it? The wind should move straight to the equatorial region, or the wind should move straight from the polar region to the subtropical region. But temperate zone is also called a subtropical region. Temperate zone is also called a subtropical region, but the winds are not moving straight to these regions. Instead, in the northern hemisphere, the wind is slightly move towards the east side in the northern hemisphere, and in the southern hemisphere, the wind moves towards west. Why does this take place? It takes place because the earth moves very fast on its axis because of rotation. When the earth rotates very fast on its axis, what happens? The air, it affects the air, it pulls the air also. As a result, the air cannot move straight towards a particular region, but it tilts or changes its direction towards east or west. So the effect of the movement of the effect of the rotation of the earth on the wind is usually called a Coriolis effect. What is it called? Coriolis effect. It is because of the Coriolis effect that the wind changes its direction towards the east or west. Okay? Remember that. Now, types of winds. Types of planetary winds. Okay? Classification of winds. Winds are classified into three. Which are they? Already we studied about some winds last year. There are different names given to the winds according to its strength and speed. But here, on the basis of the speed and other features and directions, the wind is classified into three. First one is called planetary winds. Second, seasonal winds. And third, local winds. First of all, let us study about planetary winds. What are called planetary winds? Look in the textbook, there is a definition given. The winds that blow continuously and regularly above the world pressure belts are known as planetary winds. What is said here? The wind that blow continuously. The wind that blow continuously above what? Above the pressure belts regularly. These winds are called planetary winds. Planetary winds have different names also. Three types of planetary winds are there. Three types of planetary winds. One is called easterlies. Another is called westerlies. So first one, trade winds. Okay, first one is called trade winds. These trade winds, westerlies and polar winds. These are the three types of planetary winds. The trade winds, usually in tropics. Trade winds are blown in the tropical region. Tropical region means okay, now we have seen the pressure belts. Now, the influence of the air movement, let us see. The movements of the air, horizontal movement of the air is called a wind. And winds, depending upon the speed, features and their directions, the way they occur are classified. The winds are classified into three types. Which are the three types of winds? One, planetary winds. Two, seasonal winds. And three, local winds. What are called planetary winds? The definition is given here. The winds that blow continuously and regularly above the world pressure belts are known as planetary winds. We found seven pressure belts on the earth. Seven means in one hemisphere we can see four of them, but the tropical belt is spread over two hemispheres. So we calculate tropical belt as one, then 3 plus 3 and 1, 7. Seven pressure belts are there. Over these seven pressure belts, how the wind moves? Continuously and regularly. So these winds are called planetary winds because these winds blow throughout the year over the pressure belts. These are of three types. Planetary winds are of three types. They are called trade winds, westerlies, and polar winds. Trade winds, westerlies, and polar winds. Trade winds are in the tropical region, the very hot region. The winds that blow are called trade winds. These trade winds are named in different ways. They are called westerlies in the temperate belt. Trade winds are called westerlies in the temperate belt, warm belt. And they are called polar winds in the polar belt. Like that only trade winds. Planetary winds are of three types. One is trade winds, then westerlies and polar winds. Trade winds are blown in a tropical region. Westerlies are blown in the temperate zone, and polar winds in the polar region. Like that, the planetary winds are there always on the earth. Trade winds are easterly. Easterly means in the direction, that means moving from east to west. That's it. Trade winds are moving from east to west. That's why they are called easterlies. Westerlies, from the name only we can understand, these winds are blowing from west to east. West to east. So the easterlies, they are moving from the northeast in the northern hemisphere. They are called northeast trade winds in the northern hemisphere. And in the southern hemisphere, it is called southeast trade winds. The easterlies are called northeast trade winds in the northern hemisphere and southeast trade winds in the southern hemisphere, like that. Okay. Temperate zone. In the temperate zone, which winds are there? Westerlies are there. Why do they get their name? Because these winds blow from west to east. Yes. Next, polar winds are in the polar regions. And these winds also from east to west, like that they blow. What are the effects of these polar winds, planetary winds? The impact of the or effect of the planetary winds is very important for us, because we know that on the earth the heat is distributed differently, not in the same way. There is different heating time, heating level of water and land. Land heats up very fast and cools down very fast. At the same time, water heats up very slow and cools down very slow. Because of this, the heat, the temperature present in different areas may be very different. It will affect the climate and weather of that region. So some areas are very cold, some areas are very hot. It is these planetary winds only carry the heat waves towards all around the earth, giving heat to all areas. So in that way, it helps the life to survive on the earth because heat energy is very necessary for each and every living beings. This heat is carried away and spread by these winds. And because of these two things happen, one, in the areas where it is very cool, will get some warmth. That means it will not be very, very cool, very cool. It will not be so cool. Like that in the areas, so these winds transport the heat and also the moisture. We know that in the oceanic part, where there is ocean, above the oceans the atmosphere contains moisture, humidity. And it is the wind that carries this moisture also to the land. Like that, for transporting heat and moisture, the planetary winds play a very important role, which help to survive life on the earth. If there was no atmosphere, what would have happened? It would be very hot on the daytime and very cold in the night. Also, in the polar regions, it will be always very cold. Very cold means unimaginably cold. It is because of this atmosphere only the coldness or hotness is in control. So, now also, even then, with the help of these winds also, some parts, some land areas on the earth are very hot and very cold now also. For example, deserts. In deserts, it is very hot now also, even when there is this wind. What can be the reason for that? The reason is that though the winds transport the heat and moisture or carry away the heat, it is not evenly distributed, it is not in the same way. So as a result, some areas have more heat and some areas have less heat. This is the reason why some areas are very hot, some areas are very cold. So today you read this lesson, these pages very well. Many points are there in it, so you have to read them very well. And your questions are: question number 1, which are the pressure belts? Which are the pressure belts on the earth? And question number 2, what are the 3 types of winds? What are the 3 types of winds depending upon the, okay, what are the 3 types of winds? That only you write. Okay, make the question simple. Next, what are called planetary winds? What are called planetary winds? Next, what are called seasonal winds? Seasonal winds we did not discuss, so leave it. What are called trade winds? That you write. What are the different types of planetary winds? What are the different types of planetary winds? Then write what are called trade winds. Next question, what are westerlies? What are called westerlies? And next question, what are called polar winds? What are called polar winds? Now, what are the why Okay, the question is, why do we have some parts of the earth? Why do we have some parts of the earth quite hot and some parts cooler? Quite hot and some parts cooler? Question mark. Okay. So these are, if there, one more question. If there is no atmosphere, okay, if there had been no atmosphere, what would have happened? Okay, these are the questions you have to find out, answer, and write. Okay, thank you.